Well, you can see all hell's breaking loose. The mainstream media pretty much is trying to keep a lid on it, as are the Democrats. But the fact of the matter is we have a huge problem with the top levels of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I say that with great trepidation. And I'll tell you why. I was Chief of Staff to an Attorney General. I knew at least 2 former directors of the FBI. We worked incredibly well with the FBI over at the Justice Department. It would never even have occurred to us to interfere with their activities for or against. It never would have occurred to us to interfere with an election. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? All this talk about Russia interfering with our election, which Russia sought to do, and not just our election, but elections all over the world, but they failed. The FBI also sought to interfere with our election. Mr. Comey did, Mr. McCabe did, the director, former, the current deputy, who will be out soon, as did their underlings, Mr. Stroke, Ms. Page, Raddick, Baker, and others whose names will go down in history infamously.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
There's a text exchange between these 2 FBI agents, these 2 supposed to be objective, fact-centric FBI agents, saying perhaps this is the first meeting of the secret society. So, of course, I'm going to want to know what secret society are you talking about, because you're supposed to be investigating objectively the person who just won the Electoral College. So, yeah, I'm going to want to know.
Is this getting, I mean, this is shocking. Let's say there's no secret society, but what are they saying to each other? They want to cripple this president, an insurance policy against him, meaning them, the investigators, a secret society or whatever. This is Soviet-style stuff.
This insurance policy that was referenced in trying to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. We learned today about information that in the immediate aftermath of his election, that there may have been a secret society of folks.
Now stop. Before you think this is a kook conspiracy thing, that's in the text. That maybe there'd be this meeting of this so-called secret society within the FBI. Now, I don't want us to run wild with this, but that is not something that he conjured up from his imagination. It's in the text. I want to emphasize something to you. There's no way in hell Barack Obama didn't know some of this. There's no way in hell Barack Obama didn't know that his Department of Justice and FBI had filed applications with the FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, for counterintelligence investigation. There's no way he wasn't informed about that, either directly from the FBI, the Attorney General, or in his daily presidential briefing, his intelligence briefing. There is no way that they wouldn't have told him because of the potential that it could affect the election. We have an FBI that used a dossier, in my opinion, paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC through this Fusion GPS operation, this CD operation. They go overseas. They use a former British spy who uses his contacts with the Kremlin to concoct this 35-page character assassination sheet. And what do they do with it? They work it into the FBI. As does John McCain's people. What does the FBI do? They bite down hard on this hook. They were thinking about paying Mr. Steele, maybe even bringing him on staff for more information. And apparently they take that information and they run it to a federal court, a secret federal court, which didn't do its job, by the way. The judge or judges on this court who made this decision to issue this warrant against one or more members of Trump world did not do their job. And it's interesting to me that that later, I believe it's sometime in April, a judge admonished the Justice Department and the FBI, but we still don't have all the particulars of what took place. We still don't have all the particulars, but it's getting very ugly. The texts, 50,000 texts, however many texts, an enormous number of texts missing over a 5-month period, including up to the day, give or take a day, where Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel. That just so happens? They think we just fell off the tuna boat? That's ridiculous. And what about these texts? A secret society of FBI agents? What's that all about? We need an insurance policy in case Trump wins? What's that all about? This is outrageous. I don't know that this has ever happened in American history or the history of the FBI. You know, the reason why an FBI director gets a 10-year term as FBI director is to ensure that he or she is not political or not influenced by politics. It's not because they're king or queen where they get to make decisions and influence an election. So I just want to make it abundantly clear. We talk about the Russians interfering with our election. Fair enough. They talk about collusion. There was no collusion with Trump and the Russians. But the FBI sought to interfere in our election. I'm not talking about the men and women who work at the FBI. I'm talking about the top echelon. They sought to interfere with our election, and they sought to interfere in our election in worse ways than the Russians did.
The short-lived government shutdown did not shut down GOP efforts to undermine the Russia investigation.
So stop. This is a news organization. GOP efforts to undermine the Russian investigation. If this is not a Praetorian Guard propaganda mill, I don't know what is. So now trying to figure out how the senior level of the FBI tried to interfere with the election is really an effort to derail the Russia investigation. While maybe CNN, with all its hosts, with all its guests, with all its BS, can give us one example of Donald Trump colluding with the Russians during the course of this campaign. Just one. They have none. All this is going on, this nonsense, this static, this cover-up by CNN and others, while we actually have a connection between real Russians at the Kremlin and the ex-spy Christopher Steele and his connection to Fusion GPS, which was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, of which there's no dispute. No dispute whatsoever. But, no, do you know who was attending Trump's inauguration? A Russian. Oh, my God.
I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content.
Stop right there. He asked a friend of his. He didn't say, I asked a lawyer who represents me, right? He didn't say that. He didn't say, I asked my counsel. Moreover, at that point, if he actually had counsel, he would at least make the assertion, legitimate or not, Senator, that's attorney-client privilege, and I can't get into that. But he didn't do any of those things. That shows you what a joke this is. If you had a serious, objective, legitimate special counsel, he would have taken a few months to look at this and then dropped it and said, you know what, there's no Russian collusion. That's why I was asked to take on this task. I'm going back to the private sector. Not into whether Manafort registered as a federal agent or what he did with his money 10 or 12 years ago or whatever it was. Not false statements to these guys. They claim in order to pressure them to testify against something or someone or whatever it is. There is no collusion. That should have ended it. That should have been it, but it apparently isn't.
We have exclusive breaking news on the Russia investigation. Lots of big revelations in the Russia investigation. Big news tonight on the Russia investigation. A lot of major new developments tonight in the Russia investigation.
Out in these districts, when you talk to people about Russia, and that's all we talk about at CNN.
What a joke network that has become. How about the FBI issue? The FBI issue, the FBI issue, the FBI. No, we don't care. No, CNN doesn't care if we have rogue actors at the top of the FBI. They don't care about that at all. They don't care about the texts, the missing texts, the recovered texts, the content of the texts. They don't care about any of it. But they do care that as little information as possible be made public about this silent coup.
Our understanding of this is that Andrew McCabe is stepping down and will leave the FBI immediately, though he has taken what are called terminal benefits.
All right, let's stop there. So why would he need to, we'll know more later tonight and tomorrow. So why would he need to leave immediately? Because he's had enough. He's being undermined. That's another report. Had enough being undermined? There's 3 weeks to go. What are you worried about? Well, I've had enough. After all that, I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving. If he's doing something like that, that's to position himself as the victim and to give more fodder to the left, to the Democrats, to the media. Already Eric Holder, a know-nothing, he knows nothing about what's going on, has already tweeted something that's being widely reported about, you know, how this is a very bad day. Of course, he didn't think that with Fast and Furious and all of his other abominations, but today is a very bad day.
The Michael Horowitz, he's the Inspector General at the DOJ report that's coming out at some point, and this goes into the whole thing about the text and allegations of improper behavior by many senior people at the FBI. So we don't know exactly what played into McCabe leaving today, but all of that is swirling around this case.
All of that is swirling around this case? No, all of this is swirling around the senior levels of the FBI. Jim Comey did a hell of a job, didn't he? With all these controversies and conflicts swirling around. Mr. Mueller before him did a hell of a job, didn't they? And the President of the United States is trying to clean house. Not because of Russia. There is no Russia collusion. Because he wants it cleaned up. He wants it depoliticized, if you will. And the fact of the matter is, for trying to do that, he comes under attack, which is exactly what the media want, because who are the beneficiaries of these leaks? The media. The media get the leaks. Where else do you leak? We've been hot on this trail like nobody else, and that is corruption and the politicization of the top levels of our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement, federal law enforcement agencies by the prior administration, by Jim Comey, the former director of the FBI, by McCabe, the former deputy director now of the FBI. I would argue Mueller before Comey, and on and on and on. And it's all, unfortunately, turning out to be quite accurate.
On Sunday, Republicans were split on whether they should intervene to protect Mueller's job. Senator Lindsey Graham.
I think Mr. Mueller is
Okay, hold on. There's Goober, of course. Folks, the issue here is what's going on at the senior levels of the FBI. We have a really incredible event that took place. The number two was forced out by the number one based on information he got from the Inspector General. These are all independent men. And now we're going to Trump suggest that Mueller should be fired. What if Trump said that Mueller should be fired? How is that obstruction of justice? Does anybody believe for 2 seconds they wouldn't continue investigating?
I don't think there's a need for legislation right now to protect Mueller. So we're raising an issue that's not.
As Mr. Trump
What would the legislation to protect Mueller say? We, the Congress, say the President of the United States can't fire a subordinate? Now, does anybody who understands the Constitution, all of you, believe that Congress has the power to say that the President of the United States can't fire a subordinate? No. You could take that all the way to the Supreme Court, and they would say, no, you can't do that. That's separation of powers, pure and simple. But as I said the other day, do you think this man is going to sign a bill and turn it into law that says he is denied power to fire Mueller? It's a different question on whether he should from a political or legal perspective. But it's a constitutional question when Congress gets involved. We're going to protect Mueller. We're going to protect Mueller. We're not going to allow his boss to fire him. The standard for recusing yourself from a criminal investigation at the Justice Department or other investigations is appearance of a conflict of interest. An appearance of a conflict of interest. Clearly, this is an appearance of a conflict of interest. Even one of the other senior officials at the FBI, you may recall, urged him to recuse himself and couldn't believe he wouldn't. So, of course, the President of the United States finds this outrageous. And he is the President. He's in charge of the executive branch. That includes the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I hate to tell the whole world this, but the FBI was created by Congress. It's in the executive branch. The President is in charge of it. It doesn't have an independent power under our Constitution. And God forbid if it did. When you have the most powerful and most important federal law enforcement agency at its highest levels conducting this kind of Soviet-style propaganda campaign, and I can't think of any other way to best describe it. Those are police state tactics, and they should concern everybody who believes in this republic, everybody who believes in due process, everybody who believes in the electoral process. This is the sort of thing that goes on in the third world. It's the sort of thing that takes place in Russia, ironically enough. The Democrats were somewhat schizophrenic, making two arguments at the same time. On the one hand, they were arguing, don't release the memo. Don't classified information. FBI says they're gravely concerned. You'll give up sources and methods. Don't release the memo. And then they were saying, the hell, nothing in the memo. I mean, they're just spin. It's Nunes doing his thing. Then the memo's released and it's, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Lying right to the end, lying to the American people right to the end. It's incredible. There is no way that if you're going to seek and secure a FISA warrant, a probable cause that a member of Trump's team, volunteer, part-time, of no consequence. The fact is, a member of Trump's team is going to be surveilled by the United States government as an agent of Russia. That's probable cause. Agent. They need to be an agent of a foreign power. You cannot tell me that the President of the United States didn't know that. Moreover, as I said, that weekend and that March, we know the President knew some of this. How? It was in the newspapers. How? I read it to you. The Russians clearly did try to interfere with our election. They clearly did. They failed to tip the balance. But under whose eyes were the Russians interfering with our election? Barack Obama. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf of and paid by the DNC in the Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for the same information. Stop. Now, we knew that, but this is the first, again, affirmation, unequivocal, definitive statement that that took place. So the FBI was paying Steele for the same information, or at least they were authorized to pay Steele for the same information. Now, think about that. The same opposition research. Now, we can despise the Russians as I do. You can despise Putin as I do. I've never been a code pink Republican. What happened to them, by the way? Where are they? But when it happens in our own tent, in our own country, in our own Justice Department, through the FBI, that's another story. That takes it to a level way up here. And notice the Democrat Party runs interference. Notice the Democrat Party is obstructing information. The Democrat Party was furious that texts were released so the American people would know what's going on. Just as they're trying to sit on a memo that the House Intelligence Committee has put together on some of the information that you and I should know that took place at the FBI during the course of the election. And as I said 2 days ago on my radio show and yesterday on my radio show, how is it that Barack Obama is never questioned about this? His name never comes up. Never comes up. Are you telling me that the director of the National Security Council, Susan Rice, didn't know a thing? Are you telling me that the deputy director of the National Security Council, Ben Rhodes, a well-known leaker, he didn't know a thing? Are you telling me Valerie Jarrett didn't know a thing as she sits there controlling every department and every cabinet secretary? Are you telling me that James Comey, who likes to meet with presidents and takes memos, that he didn't meet with the president or write any memos? Loretta Lynch meets with Bill Clinton on the tarmac. Now we know why she met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac. She told him, or winked and nodded to him, that his wife was in the clear. That's exactly what took place. We would not even have known of that meeting if a local camera crew in Phoenix at their airport hadn't seen them. And all the effort to cover it up. Oh, we were talking about our grandchildren. Really? Nobody believes that. The Justice Department, for the longest time, wouldn't release any documents, any information related to the tarmac meeting. Well, if they're talking about their grandchildren, why would you release it all? Now, this is just part of the continuum. This is what's been taking place. But it didn't start today, and it didn't start yesterday. And it's nice to see now that we have committees of Congress who are concerned about this. It's nice to see now that we have radio hosts who are concerned about this. It's nice to see that we now have television hosts who are concerned about this. Where the hell were they in March? Mark, what are you talking about? Where were they in March? When I had information, pulled it together from the public accounts, and began to pull the string and to see that something didn't smell right, something didn't look right. And the media came down on me like a ton of bricks. I'm a tough guy, I can handle it. That's not my point. They wanted to shut it down, so they used ridicule, they used conspiracy theory arguments, they used right-wing stuff, all that stuff. And I had very little support in the conservative media, almost none. They were, oh, has he gone nutty over here? Has he done? No. So we kicked the door open. And now the door's open. And now people are looking. And they should look. And we need to get to the bottom of this. And if we don't get to the bottom of this, we're in a hell of a lot of trouble. Time in modern American history, or the history of the FBI, when the entire senior leadership has been wiped out? I was thinking about this the other day. The director of the FBI was fired by the president. He's a leaker, and he's a liar. The deputy director of the FBI, McCabe, is under criminal investigation for leaking and lying. Peter Strzok was in charge of counterintelligence investigations. He was just fired yesterday by the FBI for leaking, lying, and texting what he texted, and we don't need to go through that again. And others have been forced out. The senior level of the FBI. That's pretty damn amazing, is it not? That tells you you had, under that senior leadership, a rogue agency.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
On the face of the dossier, it appears that Mr. Steele gathered much of his information from Russian government sources inside Russia. He gathered much of his information from Russians in Russia. How do the left and the media get away with still accusing Trump of colluding with the Russians, when in fact we have unequivocal, undeniable evidence that that's exactly what the Hillary Clinton campaign was doing, which is really shocking. This whole thing started with the Clinton campaign and the DNC funding Fusion GPS, which funded this ex-British spy who used these Russians, and then got the FBI, and the FBI apparently celebrated the information and used it to go after Trump. And that's the basis of this entire thing. And they pushed it out in the media, which is why the media was talking Russia collusion, on and on and on. There's no collusion, no matter how many times we say it, no matter how many investigations take place, congressional or otherwise. It's truly, truly appalling. And Hillary Clinton sits back and acts like her fingerprints aren't on it. Her fingerprints are all over it. And Obama sits back and acts like he doesn't know a damn thing. He knows everything. For more than a year, they've had 4 FISA applications that we're aware of using the dossier as well as other FBI documents relating to Mr. Steele. So Mr. Steele is basically the core reason that these applications have been filed. Mr. Steele, who was hired by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC through Fusion GPS. So the Clinton campaign and the DNC were able, through Mr. Steele and the Russians, to get these FISA applications filed and warrants issued. This is exactly why I said, in essence, to put it in plain English, Hillary Clinton paid for these warrants. The FBI misled a federal court. The FBI misled the FISA court with the use of this information, the way they used it. And when Mr. Rosenstein and others testified on Capitol Hill that they weren't going to mention whether the dossier was used in any of the applications before this committee got the applications, I told you that I know they used it, because it's not classified to say, no, we didn't use the dossier. Not only did they use the dossier, it was the brunt of their argument to the court, and they used it 4 times. Look at these FBI warrants and the extension of these warrants, this Carter page. As they used to say, where's the beef? Okay, you've been surveilling the man apparently for years, really, one way or another. And he was actually assisting them at one point to get the Russians. Okay, where's your case against him? You don't have a case against Trump World. You don't have a case against the Trump campaign or transition. You don't have a case against Carter Page. People have been indicted over nonsense. Absolute nonsense, having absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump, Trump World, the campaign, nothing. Zero.
This comment said, I'm going to be a professional school shooter, and I knew that I couldn't just ignore that.
He's a great patriot, a citizen patriot. He did exactly what everybody always says to do. Don't hold back. If you see something that's bad, report it, report it, report it. I even heard this yesterday. So he reported it to the FBI. What came of it? What came of it? Maybe Trey Gowdy will look into that. I don't know. He says, I want to kill people. Yeah, let me see. Yes, quote, I want to kill people. And I can give you the Instagram accounts, and you can look at them, and you'll see the pictures. Now stop right there. You're the FBI. Somebody's calling you. They give you their name. They tell you the name of the potential murderer. They're giving you the Instagram accounts. What the hell else do you want? That's not just see and report. That's see and give specific information. Wouldn't you have called your field office and said, get the hell over there and find out what this kid's up to? Wouldn't you? We have all these hearings about guns, all these hearings promoting gun control. I want to know exactly how the FBI handled this. I want to know how this call came in, what their call center's like, what happened from the call center, where did that call go from there, the name of the individual or the unit to whom it went, what, if anything, they did with it. That's not enough for the FBI to, well, you know, unfortunately, we didn't follow our protocols. We have 17 dead people, many of which are children. And quite frankly, and I'll say it, and I've said it earlier, this one could have been prevented, okay? Evil is evil, and you can't stop evil all the time. Trust me, I know this. And people are imperfect whether they have a uniform on or not. This one could have been stopped. It's all over the Washington Post, all over the New York Times, all over the media. They're all worked up. There was a meeting on this island, this Seychelles Island. And very scary kind of meeting. They were collaborating, they were conspiring. What were they doing in this meeting? When did this take place? All right, I'll walk you through this latest phony issue that's being leaked out by the prosecutor's office to the media. By the way, this is an old story. It's a story that goes back to August on CNN, back to September on Fox, but let's play.
The FBI is looking into the Seychelles meeting as part of the probe into alleged Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. election.
No, wait a minute. How can it be part of the probe of Russian interference in the 2016 election when the meeting took place January 11th, 2017? Do I have that right? Huh? What? Yeah? Somebody get on the FBI hotline. Get on the FBI hotline. Tell them. This doesn't make, no, they won't even bother if you call on the FBI hotline, as I recall. I'm still having trouble following what the issue is here. So there was a meeting on January 11th, 9 days before this president is inaugurated, to set up a back channel to Putin when you're going to be president in 9 days? And the guy setting it up has really no formal ties to the campaign? I still don't understand what the issue is. Does anybody understand what the issue is? Of course not. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Next piece of mud thrown against the wall, and the next one, and the next one. When the Inspector General's office of the Department of Justice steps up, and the OPR office of FBI steps up and says, we need to clean up this place, and this guy needs to be fired, it is appalling to me that the Democrats in lockstep, that the media virtually in lockstep, some miscreant Republicans, are talking about poor victimized McCabe, when McCabe may well have committed a crime, but he clearly violated the rules of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Why are they letting them steal the money? What's the angle? Well, what are they buying? They're buying laptops and tablets. If they intercept them, they do their little spy thing, and then they deliver them right into the hands of Al-Qaeda, and they create basically a dream come true.
Now, hold on right there. His point is, they knew that they were using his financial information, his social security number, his credit cards. They knew what they had ordered. They could have tracked them back easily to their location, meaning his location. And he's saying, they never came to help me. They had to know where I was or about where I was, but they wouldn't help me. And the FBI agent handling his case, you saw the lady earlier, told his mother that he joined Al-Qaeda, and he was on a spending spree, knowing full well that that wasn't the case and certainly wasn't likely the case. You'll recall that there were several occasions, at least a couple of occasions, where the would-be mass murderer, his son, he's the FBI informant, where the FBI was informed, we think we have a problem with this guy. You remember that? Going back to the Orlando mass killing case? And somehow, in some way, his son fell off the radar screen for the FBI. Now, I'm not saying there's conspiracy or anything shadowy. I'm saying, what the hell is going on at the FBI? I don't understand it. You're the FBI. This is your informant for 10 years. You don't call this guy in and talk to him about his son, the potential issues with his son. They even spoke to the son on one or more occasions, as I recall. I'm doing this from memory, but they even spoke to the son. And they decided, oh, okay, whatever. So, again, we have, I don't know, it's like a complete dropping of the ball in this case. In the case with the two Russians who murdered the individuals at the Boston Marathon. In the case involving Fort Hood, the FBI was notified about that nut job in advance. Obviously, the case that took place in Florida. I mean, you want to have a march. I mean, it seems to me we'd have a march questioning the competency of the central federal government when it comes to their responsibilities for keeping our communities safe. These tactics are unbelievable. When you are intercepting phone calls, when you are wiretapping the president's personal lawyer, one of them anyway, who did some work for him, his home, his office, his hotel room in early April. You may be doing that, to try and get Cohen on a variety of issues, but you know damn well that he's the president's personal lawyer on certain matters, and you're listening to get the president. That's the big fish. And I must say, ladies and gentlemen, I have never heard of a case in which the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office in any city would wiretap a president's personal lawyer. I suspect none of Clinton's personal lawyers were tapped. That is Hillary Clinton. I suspect none of Bill Clinton's personal lawyers were tapped when the investigation took place in Whitewater and related cases. I have no information that during Watergate that any of President Nixon's lawyers were surveilled, private lawyers, that is. So this is enormously troubling to me. I mean, what next? Did they plant bugs in the Oval Office, telling the president to talk into a lamp? What next? Was Jim Comey there planting bugs? Now, of course, I'm being sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek, but we're not far from this, are we? So the Obama administration knew all about Russian interference, but they didn't do a damn thing about it because they didn't want to interfere with the Hillary election. You see, the victim here is Donald Trump. The victim here is the Trump campaign. The victim here is the Trump transition team. The victim here is all the people who are now devoured by this Mueller, this investigation and so forth, in which there's no criminal statute at the center of it, at the center of it. So where are we now? Where are we now is it's really a two-track thing. We're trying to protect our president from an unconstitutional coup d'etat, a silent coup as I call it. That's the one battle that's going on. The other battle that's going on is to try to expose the unbelievable Soviet-style police state tactics that were used by the Obama administration as the law enforcement senior level and the intelligence senior level were unleashed against Donald Trump, the Trump campaign, that is the Republican Party, in the lead up to the presidential election, and they're still there, and they're still doing it. New York Post pointed out a Cambridge professor with deep ties to American and British intelligence has been outed as an agent who snooped on the Trump presidential campaign for the FBI. Now that is jaw-dropping. You've heard about it over the last 48, 72 hours, so I'm not breaking any news to you, but I wanted to address this anyway. That is jaw-dropping.
That the FBI was trying to figure out just what the Russians were up to.
No, the FBI was not trying to figure out what the Russians were up to because they were working with the dossier from Christopher Steele that was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC that included collusion with the Russians. They weren't trying to figure out what the Russians were up to. Moreover, the President of the United States was not trying to figure out what the Russians were up to. His national security advisor, Susan Rice, told him in April 2016, told the cybersecurity team, I've said it 1,000 times at the White House, lay off, quote, stand down, and do not provide a memo to the President of the United States with options. Does that sound like an administration that's trying to get to the bottom of the Russian interference? Does that sound like the FBI was trying to get to the bottom of the Russian interference when they were actually going to hire Christopher Steele, the guy that actually worked with the Kremlin? Is this guy a joke, a complete fraud? Yes, he is. So now Trump keeps lying, you see, because he keeps using this word spy. And Trey Gowdy, I've never used the word spy in a criminal investigation. Nobody does, genius. It's a counterintelligence investigation. This informant, the FBI, this is what they do. They get a sense something's going on. The FBI will tell you they're investigating Russia. Well, I would say, then what the hell did you do about Russia during the intervention, during the last campaign? Almost nothing. All the focus was on Trump. All the leaks are on Trump. Did McCabe leak about Russia? No, he leaked about Trump. Did Comey leak about Russia? No, he leaked about Trump. How about Strzok and Page? What are they up to? Russia? No, Trump. We're talking about presidential campaigns. You got to treat them very carefully. FBI shouldn't be mucking around. The CIA shouldn't be mucking around. The White House shouldn't be mucking around in these campaigns. As I've said to you many, many times, the greater threat to this country wasn't the Russian interference in our election, which is unequivocally true. That's what they did. It was the federal government under the Obama administration's interference in our election that should cause you the greatest concern. And Mr. Gowdy's giving them aid and comfort, and the media, of course, are giving them cover because that's what they do.
When the FBI comes into contact with information about what a foreign government may be doing in our election cycle, I think they have an obligation to run it out.
Really? They have an obligation to run it out. So tell me exactly what did the FBI do under Mr. Comey and McCabe, that is under Barack Milhouse, Benito Obama? What exactly did they do when they got information that the Russians were interfering in our campaign? Investigate the Trump campaign? What exactly did they do? How come Trey Gowdy doesn't tell us what did the Obama administration do to try and stop the Russians from interfering in our election? Nobody asks this of him, of Comey, of McCabe, of Brennan, of Clapper, of Susan Rice, of any of them. Certainly not Barack Obama. He's busy with Netflix and all the rest.
Was there a spy?
That is not a term I've ever used in the criminal justice system.
Well, the reason you would never use the term spy in the criminal justice system is because the word spy doesn't belong in the criminal justice system. The word informant belongs in the criminal justice system. Stay with me. I've tried to explain this over the course of the last 72 hours. The word spy applies to a counterintelligence investigation. What the FBI was conducting was a counterintelligence investigation. That's why they went to the FISA court. That's why they were unmasking people. None of that has to do with criminal justice. It has to do with an investigation of counterintelligence, which is not a criminal investigation. He should know this. He'll tell you that he's a former federal prosecutor. I looked it up. He actually is. He really was. And so the point is, you're not going to hear informant when you're doing a counterintelligence investigation at the FBI. It's spy. So why won't he use the word spy? He's the incoming president of the United States. The FBI reports to him. Those agents work for him. How long were they going to keep this secret from the president? Turns out they kept it secret from the president until 2 weeks ago. He's been president of the United States almost a year and a half. If they had an informant investigating the Russians, why didn't they tell the sitting United States president? Because of everything I've said. They had a spy in the Trump campaign. Here's the key. Page, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? Stroke. No, he won't. We'll stop it. Now, how the Inspector General can conclude, again, based on leaked reports, that there is no political bias in the FBI's actions is really unbelievable to me. It's actually preposterous. What do you make of this? Those two lines. Well, if they're not politically motivated, what are they motivated by? Of course they are.
Congress has exercised its oversight authority to hold the executive branch accountable, conducting investigations, holding public hearings.
They are. They're holding investigations. about all the activities that occurred in the Obama administration, where the Obama administration, through the FBI, through its spies from the FBI, working with a foreign former secret agent to develop a dossier, which was developed apparently with apparatchiks in the Kremlin, paid for by the Hillary campaign and the DNC, the application for a FISA warrant that was submitted to the FISA court, which lacked material information like the fact that it was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. We could go on and on and on. Mr. Comey was fired, and it turns out he was a leaker. The deputy FBI director was fired, and he's under criminal prosecution. The head of counterintelligence, Mr. Stroke, he was fired, and he may be under investigation as well, for all we know. Is that what he's talking about? Because those hearings have been taking place. The people obstructing them and undermining them have been the Democrats, his party. We must wait for the Mueller report. Wait for the Mueller report. All these senior leftist radicals in the Democrat Party, wait for the Mueller report. Pelosi, wait for the Mueller report. Hoyer, let's wait for the Mueller report. Why are they so confident about the Mueller report? Because I believe the Mueller report is going to be just as outrageously unconstitutional as I've been talking about over these years, or 20 months. Because all they have to do is put stuff in writing. They don't have to prove a damn thing. They don't have to go in front of a judge. They don't have to go in front of a jury. They don't have to make their case. There's no due process. There's no innocence until proven guilty. There's just a prosecutor and his team of Democrat donors making allegations. That's all it is. But they're so substantiated. But you and I both know that CNN is going to run with them. MSNBC will run with them. All the nightly news programs will run with it. All the commentators will run with it. They'll drag out their former federal prosecutors, their former judges, and all the rest to tell you how damning it all is, that there's collusion everywhere, everywhere. There's Russians under the rocks. They're in the closets. Oh, my goodness. They're everywhere, everywhere. Meanwhile, the administration that was in power at the time did damn near nothing to stop whatever it is they didn't stop.
The FBI, and this is not about the deep state, this is about the most serious counterintelligence people we have in the U.S. government saying, oh my God.
So notice there's no curiosity whatsoever about what the FBI was doing. No civil liberties concern whatsoever. He's a leftist. No civil liberties concern whatsoever. No discussion about even the possibility that senior officials at the FBI sought to undo the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency. That this is utterly and completely unprecedented. Nothing. It's Trump, you see. They had every reason, the FBI, to get into his campaign, to unlaunch a criminal investigation behind his back, to wonder if he is a secret spy for the Russians. They're even using the phrase now, whether he's the Manchurian candidate. Incredible. BuzzFeed's description of specific statements to the special counsel's office and characterization of documents and testimony obtained by this office regarding Michael Cohen's congressional testimony are not accurate. Keep it there. That was issued at around 7:25, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. I started raising the issue of a leak investigation and repeatedly raised it. The special counsel's office, based on the explanation I just gave you, right at the top of the hour. My show hits around 6:07 p.m. Eastern Time. Went from that all the way up to 7 o'clock. 25 to 30 minutes later, they issue this statement. Now, you're telling me, according to this Washington Post article, that they sat in the office mulling this over. The Washington Post article, I didn't want to read the whole thing to you, goes on. They started looking over their interview notes and looking in their files to try and determine if anybody told them this. Wait a minute. If you have a hot tamale in your hand, and you know, if the President of the United States told Michael Cohen to commit perjury in front of a congressional committee on a matter related to Russia, not Russian collusion, but you understand, that they would have to search their files and wonder if they conducted an interview in which that was said. They're working on a report right now. That would be the marquee. That would be the leading issue. They didn't spend all day searching their files and checking their interviews of witnesses. They sat on it. Eric Swalwell, also of California, More evidence of collusion. Well, where's your first piece of evidence? And this guy's thinking of running for president. I said to my neighbor, see all these guys thinking of running for president? You know what he says to me? I'm thinking of running for president. Everybody's thinking of running for president. That's a joke. If Donald Trump directed his lawyer to lie, it was to conceal the underlying allegation from being exposed as true. Hashtag they colluded. Hashtag you're a moron. So I called for a leak investigation. It is a felony to leak investigative information. Mr. Comey knows that now. Mr. McCabe knows that now. Mr. Baker, all FBI guys know that now. They all know it now because they're all under investigation in one form or another for leaking. Weissman left his position as chief of the Criminal Fraud Division at the U.S. Department of Justice to help Mueller lead the FBI investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election. His initials, AAW, appear on a document related to Paul Manafort's charges. So normally his initials are on it. Why? Because he's created the document. The copy of the document CNN had didn't have his initials on it, didn't have the so-called PACER identification on it. And how do Roger Stone's lawyers know? Remember what I said. Because CNN shared it with Roger Stone's lawyers to get a comment. And they're looking at it. Wait a minute. The one CNN sent us is different than the one that's on the website for the Justice Department and that they filed. The implication that an FBI official is leaking information to control CNN's coverage of the federal agency's activities could lead to another criminal investigation of its own people and be enough to ruin the current 2-year probe. Not if the Justice Department keeps sitting on its... Where's this guy Whitaker, the acting attorney general? Have they so cowed this guy? Where is he? It gets worse and worse. The more the liberal New York Times, the liberal Washington Post, the other liberal outlets put this information out as if they're really trying to destroy Trump. The more they put this information out, the more we are learning the depths to which senior FBI officials, senior Justice Department officials, and others tried to reverse the course of history and reverse the course of your vote. And it is a disastrous spectacle. And it is the greatest scandal in American history.